On today's episode, Mansplaining Life. We are just two guys navigating this chapter called midlife. What started as two friends swapping stories that turned into a quest to answer life's biggest questions about this mid-crisis mystery. Join us as we talk it out, laugh through the chaos, and get real about the struggles. This is our podcast. This is our question. Is it menopause or menopause?
So today's subject is mansplaining life. Why don't you go ahead and mansplain what we're talking about here, Jeff?
Well, where we as guys try to make sense of the world and inevitably sometimes get it wrong. Today we're tackling the art of overcomplicating the simplest things. You know, like when you try to fix a leaky faucet with 3 trips to Home Depot. But somehow you make it worse. Yeah, we've all been there. And relationships, we're experts at reading the room. Said, no man ever.
No man ever.
So let's talk about how we overthink, overdo, and over-explain our way through life. Buckle up. It's going to be a fun one.
Let's get into it. Okay, buddy, mansplaining. Guilty as charged. You're guilty as charged. Hell, we mansplain things to each other.
Why do we do it?
I don't know.
Why do we mansplain? Why do we over-explain?
Is it a? Do you know what? I think for you and I specifically, we're just used to having to, because I don't want to say it twice.
Oh,
because I don't want to say it twice.
That's true, man. I say that all the time. I'm like, I'm tired of explaining it.
You know, I had a boss early in life,
it
and I've managed several businesses since then, and I have a specific way of being a boss, and it's probably different than when I do relationships, which sucks. But I had a boss early in life who would look at me and say, "I need you to take this box, and I need you to pick it up with 2 hands, and then carry it up that flight of stairs over there, 1 step at a time, and then set it down on the left-hand side, put this stapler on top of it, come back downstairs, watch your hands." And I'm looking, saying to myself,
brutal.
What do we need? What is the end goal? This box, that door.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I need to know. Pretty simple. So I've gone through life thinking, hey, I've got a staff in front of me. At the end of the day, this box, that door. Do you know how many times that staff has actually turned the box into paper mache?
Really?
Burnt
Trying to
the
get
box,
it out?
ruined the box, opened the box, and destroyed what's
Wow.
inside. It is incredible. And I've learned, I hated that boss for micromanaging, but I better mansplain the way that I need this down. But mansplaining here is a derogatory term. That's it.
Absolutely.
Oh, we're mansplaining. Like, I have to talk down to you. I don't have to talk down to you. Well, I'm just going to say it once so that we're clear on the subject. Then I'm going to. No, I'm not talking to my wife or my kid or my employees. Just in general, I'm going to over-explain once, so I only have to say it.
Because guaranteed, there is going to be something. If you didn't, something would be. They would miss the stairs.
They're going to ruin the box.
Yeah.
It
Something
happens
would be like,
9 times
well,
out
you
of
didn't
10.
tell me to take the stairs.
Yeah, we take for granted common sense, which I guess is why the
That's the
derogatory
biggest thing.
mansplaining.
Yeah.
It's taking common sense. So I don't think when this entire podcast is talking about issues with relationships and life and going through this and talking with each other. I mean, menopause versus menopause, but I don't think that mansplaining is us over explaining something that we want. I think it's the true spirit of what we're talking about is, do they feel we're talking down to them? Meaning our kids, our employees, and our wives.
Or
Are we?
Is it being efficient?
In my opinion, we're being efficient.
Yeah.
But are we delivering the mail wrong?
Well, so at whose fault is do they, if they think it's an issue on their end, is it on their end or is it on our end?
Okay.
I think once again, if you say, "Hey, you dumb idiot, this is how you carry the box. Don't be so stupid when you carry it up that way." Maybe that's a different story, but
what about when we try to, so mansplaining in the true definition of the word, and I think what the spirit of this episode is the why do we try and explain things that no one asked us the question to? Like, you got any funny examples of something that, where you're going down and you're just explaining something that really requires no explanation, or giving instructions to something that requires no instructions, and then afterwards you think, I'm a dick.
Well, I know I can't think of some. Well, I'm sure there's a ton, but for instance, I know I'm very guilty for if you're watching somebody could be doing the dishes or some weird thing like that, and then I could say, well, if you did this, It'd be twice as fast and more efficient.
We do it chopping onions. I
there's a
grew
way
up
to
in a
do it.
restaurant.
Yeah.
I chop onions very efficiently, very quickly. I'm good at it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, though, when I'm done meal prepping, which I do once a week, I do the majority of that stuff. The kitchen looks like some like Nagasaki. Like, I mean, something exploded in it, which is fine by me. I grew up in an atmosphere where I had a whole bunch of employees picking up after me and stuff like that. And then when I get done, we clean the kitchen.
Yep.
And my wife will come out and be like, oh my God, why is it so messy? And you're doing it wrong. And hey, the meals are cooked. We're all eating. And we got to the finish line at the same time. My father-in-law is famous for saying there's more than one way to skin a cat. And we have really come to a good place now where I don't know that I mansplain as much anymore because she'll just look at me dead in the middle of it and say, there's more than one way to skin a cat. I don't get to say you're chopping that onion wrong anymore because it's really not worth it to the onion's getting chopped, man.
Well, I think I disagree.
Okay, yeah, fire away.
I think I do because although I agree with that statement, which is you can blanket every sort of thing, the downside I feel to that would be if everyone said that, then no one would learn how to do something better or more efficient or maybe more correctly, if that's the right term. You know what I mean? Like if it took you 5 hours to meal prep and your wife come in and said, if you were to just do this and you could drop it down to 3 hours, you wouldn't do it?
Yes, I would. But I would. I know. I already know what the laughter is about because yes, I would. That's the truest, most efficient way. But I'll be damned if I'm going to say that's about. You know why? First of all,
there's more than one.
Those extra 2 hours, I'm crushing candies on my phone, man. I got a little piece of quiet. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah.
You go ahead and do what you're doing.
You have a good.
No, I get what you're
reason
saying
for
on
it.
efficiency, and I think that would work, Jeff, with employees in a restaurant or employees in any situation. I think it would work with buddies doing a project together or accomplishing a goal. But I think in relationships, I might mention, hey, that's interesting the way you're chopping that. This is the way I was taught to do it. I like it better, but also you know what? You might chop your fingers off. If your way's good, your way's good.
Yeah.
And let them come to their own conclusion. And it's not about
once again, it's how it's presented.
It's about how it's presented. Yeah, for sure. But I think this boils down to why do men always jump to solutions? You're immediately offering a solution to a problem that wasn't even a problem. The only person that had a problem with it was you. You were right. You could have had 5 hours down to 3, but at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah. But for me, because I didn't want to hear you bitch that you spent 5 hours meal prepping, because I know inevitably that was going to happen.
Again, that's right.
So, but it's one of those. It's preventative maintenance, essentially. I always call it. So you kind of miss that thing. But I think as males, we have just genetically had that role of teaching, or how do I say it? Like, you know, when you cavemen. In order to hunt, they had to teach their kids. And then, the first time the kid would take the spear and throw it in the ground, and he would say, no, you do it this way. I'm sure he didn't say it that way.
Right.
He just ooged and ogged. But you got to throw it this way. And he's like, no, I like this way, but you're not going to eat this way.
You're not going to eat this way.
So like, I feel like that's something a male kind of does naturally.
So here
right
we
or
go.
wrong, though.
So the answer, let them fail. So the kid,
well, there's
I'll
that
tell you
too.
what, if it was you get to reap what you sow, you get to eat what you hunted today. The kid's going to quickly learn to throw it the way that the dads teach him to throw it. As would, this is so derogatory, but as would our wives chopping onions, for example, is be like, oh well, if we each have 20 onions to chop, and when we're done, we get to go in the other room and be reaped with rewards. I'll be there 2 hours before you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not going to tell you how to do your thing.
Yeah.
But hey, do you know how many times I've done that same thing and then turned around and been like, oh my gosh, she was right. One out of 10. But that 1 out of 10 was absolutely eye-opening where I'm like, oh, this is kind of easier. Don't tell anybody.
No, I know.
Now, with that said, I see where you're going, and that is
the humble pie.
Here's the opposite side to this. We get in trouble for mansplaining, but what happens if your mansplaining is right? What happens if you're changing the tire on the side of a car or the side of the road, right? You've got, we're going to use wives in this case. You got your wife out there doing it for you because, I don't know, you got 2 broken arms, and you're saying, this is the way to do it. You have to rotate each nut. And don't tell me what to do, mister. No problem. Don't mansplain it to me, Jeff. No problem.
Yeah.
A mile down the road, clunk, clunk.
Tire falls off.
Tire falls off. That's a hell of a big I told you so. And now you're in trouble again because I know you're not going to say I told you so, But we both, and you have that look, that whole you can't hear it on the radio, but that look, the all assuming, told you so look, where we just want to say, if you just had listened the first time, and we know we're right. Most of our conversations are about Jesus. We are. Why didn't they just do it the way they told us? Yeah, I'm bringing religious. I was going to say, whoa, we talk about that
just
a lot.
turned there.
But truly, so we're damned if we do and damned if we don't. We're damned if we mansplain.
Yeah.
But we're damned if we don't mansplain, because if we're right and we didn't get that message across and it fails to them later,
Well, I can remember one episode, the same idea, where we were screwing some wood to the wall or something like that, and it was a very finished piece of wood, and so any scratches on it, you would see it, so you had to be very careful with screwing. And I don't remember exactly how it went down, but it was, I think I was struggling with one because it was a weird angle or something, and I don't know, someone said something, so I'm like, here, why don't you try it? So now that piece of wood has 14 holes in it, and every day walking by it, I'm like, oh, that's a good lesson.
Right.
Good lesson to learn.
Right.
So once again, I go back to that preventative maintenance thing, but a lot of people don't like to hear that.
So,
it's not about being right or wrong. It's just about being
preventative maintenance is the best way to put that.
Preventative, issues. Because, the tire falls off. Now you've wrecked the tire, the car, the rim. And then you know what I mean? You got to call the thing. Like now it's twice as much money. It's twice as much everything. It just becomes a thing.
So we're on a bit of a slippery slope, because if, let's say, for the benefit of the doubt, let's say we're right 7 times out of 10 where preventative maintenance, mansplaining would have done the trick, then we get that egotistical, this is
it's
a
a
thing.
tough one.
And where that turns into is using this to misread social cues. So here's the issue. I didn't tell you this conversation happened, but I was talking to your wife last week, and it was to me, I'm mansplaining something to my own. I've explained the situation, and I'm wrong, and I'll tell you where I'm wrong. I was my thing is my wife, my partner will come to me and say, what would you think of this lingerie? And I'd be like,
no, she. Oh, no, you're right. She does it to you.
Don't do it, right? I my opinion on it, and I say this, we both have the same opinion. We believe our wives to be our own personal porn stars. They're beautiful. I find my wife extremely attractive, and I look and think, first of all, why spend $80 on a negligee that's going to last 10 seconds? Mm-hmm. That does nothing for me. What I want to see is the whole package. Like, and I say this all the time. Here's me mansplaining, and this is self-deprecating. I will look and say, hey, would you go put paint a bow tie on the Mona Lisa? Like, it's good the way it is. You don't wreck a perfectly good piece of art. And me, I'm thinking, I'm a genius here. First, I've just saved $80, and it wasn't about the money. But second, I'm a hero for saying you don't need to cover up the perfect package. Yep. And it was your wife who looked and said, "You're an idiot, Keith. It's for her. It's not for you. She wants to feel sexy. She wants to look good, and you just mansplain."
Yeah, that's true.
And I know I'm right. I can come to a group of 20 guys in a room and say, "Here's my opinion." They're like, "Keith Bears, you're a genius. You just saved us hundreds of dollars on lingerie, and we now have the line to tell our wives so that we think we're the heroes." And that's not what they want to hear. I just mansplained something that, first of all, didn't need explaining, and second of all, was truly just a woman saying, "Shut your pie hole, Keith, and look at me in this.
We don't get
cute."
that,
and we don't get it. So we're not always right.
That. No, I think that, in that situation, it was a personal choice, personal situation. And it doesn't necessarily have to be right or wrong. Once again, it's more about, I think, of a teaching. I have been taught a lot by my wife. And it may not be on building something or whatever, but I'm sure there probably has been. But once again, we're individuals, and each person brings their own characteristics and their own knowledge.
So here's a good one. We both laugh about this, is navigating in a car. I drove with you somewhere recently. I don't remember where we went. Well, for something. And you were smart enough to be like, "Oh man, I forgot to, up here 10 meters, we got to turn right." And that was like, you were giving me short notice, but it was still 10 meters of notice. And then you're like, "I am so sorry. I know better than this." And then it was, conversation aside, we know how to navigate. We didn't even driven like that together before, but we could navigate because we know we know how to communicate.
Yeah.
Whereas this is, I'm boiling down to asking for directions because I am in charge of navigation. My wife would look at a road map and say, "Take the blue road." Sweetheart, that's a river. That's Google purposely makes that blue for that very reason. That's a river.
We've had a lot of years of learning how to read maps.
Of this. But why then are we afraid to ask for directions? The overall men.
Do you ask for directions?
Never.
Yeah. Why would you?
Why would I? In fact, but I'll tell you this secretly, because I want to be the alpha, because I want to not have to mansplain. I will, if we're going to a strange city I've never been to before. The night before, I'm memorizing a road map. At least the grid pattern of the city and saying, I know this because I want to go and educate it.
Stuff. Yeah.
One, so I don't get overly lost and I have a basic idea. Maybe that's the Neanderthal attitude of the caveman we talked about earlier. But two, because I like my wife thinking, yeah, he's got the answers.
Yeah.
This guy's got it. Yeah.
He's my man.
He's on top of things.
He's my good thing.
And so maybe I'm mansplaining to myself. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
But why? Yeah, why is it directed towards other people?
Do you do the same thing? Do you look up? If
Oh
you're going somewhere, you'll
Days
investigate it in advance,
yeah.
right? If we're going on vacation, I know in advance where the hot spots. I know everything about it, so that we don't have to stop and think and argue when we're there. Maybe it's so that I don't have to borrow trouble later down the line. Just be prepared.
Be prepared.
The Scout's honor,
Scout's
right?
honor.
Yeah. Put my hand out here with the Vulcan.
Whatever it is, I forget. It's been a while.
Fingers.
Yeah, that's a whole thing. The map thing is an interesting thing. But once again, is it mansplaining or just teaching?
Okay, so now we're gonna dip right into the relationship blunders. So we're talking about moments when you try to explain yourself, but you're mansplaining and therefore it backfires. Like, I mean, you have every valid reason to say this is the way we're doing it, or we have to do it this way, or you know what, I'm putting my foot down because we're end of story. This is not even a discussion. We're doing. You just know you're right, and there is no time to say, you know what, let's chance having that tire fall off on the side of the road. Let's go ahead and have the airbags come off and call a tow truck. God damn it, just listen to me. We're rotating the lug nuts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How often does that backfire on you? Is it worth it?
That's a good question.
It's a valid question. I can't think of any examples off the top of my head. I wish we had the ability for the people to call in live right now. But truthfully, there are so many times when you look and just say, we cannot afford to, we're late for a meeting and you're driving down the road and I think you need to turn right here. In my relationship, I've just laughed and said, that means we turn left.
So we keep a running total now where it's a matter of...
There's a slippery slope.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny now. We make fun of it though, but I mean, I'm sure the other half probably doesn't because I think out of the tally, I'm probably up 257,000 to 4 when it comes to directions. And a lot of times I'll be like, which way you want to go? Like if we're she's like, no, this is not right. Or this is not right. Or this is whatever. Which way you want to go? This way. Okay.
Oh, yeah. No, I love
the
that.
wrong way.
If it's a Sunday afternoon, you got nowhere else to be, let's do it.
Yeah. If you're in a hurry,
as you know, we travel a lot. And this is a really, really big ongoing joke in our thing. But my wife is just very carefree and out to the world. Mm-hmm. And if we are in a hotel and there's a bank of elevators, when we get out of those elevators, you have a choice of turning left or right. Those are your only two choices in a hotel hallway. 100 out of 100 times, she will turn the wrong way. She will bang into the garbage can that's facing at the end of the hallway and giggle. We will walk to a dead-end corridor and turn right looking for the ice machine, and I'll follow along. But now when we go, I'll just look and say which way we can get out of the elevators, and it's a process, and we both giggle. And if she turns right, I will just naturally go left.
Go the other way.
Even if I don't know where we're going, I will head the opposite direction.
It's just been put out there into the world. That's the thing.
This comes back to mansplaining, is at the end of the day, I will look and say, how about when you go out with Jasmine, our daughter, when you guys are out at a hotel somewhere and you're doing your thing, what happens? Like, honestly, what happens? You got a dinner reservation for 7:30, and it's a simple shoulder shrug that says, well, we get there at 7:40, and we laugh at each other, and then we have a glass of wine. And it's no big deal, because the world keeps spinning.
Yep.
Everything goes up. You and I would look at each other and go, oh my God, we're late, we're so stupid. We would carry on that attitude.
Wouldn't matter.
And it
wouldn't matter.
It's just, for them, it's a shoulder shrug and a meh.
I think that's interesting when you start thinking about it and why we have to do it. Why do we need to be right?
Their life is so much better than ours because they don't have to think about it. They just, they go left instead of right. What's the big deal?
You're always wrong.
What were the repercussions? What were the repercussions of being wrong all the time?
Depression? Suicide?
I don't know. I honestly, I don't have the answer to that.
I don't know either. I'm just throwing that out there. That's very...
This comes down to us letting go of the need to be right.
Yep.
Honestly, that's...
In certain situations, though.
The lug nuts on the side of the car.
Yeah,
I need
that's
to
a
be right.
situation.
Jeff,
Yeah.
I need to be
I
right.
need to be right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a coffee mug. There's a slogan for the show. Jeff, right.
I need to be right. Don't say that.
There are times when you need to be right. There are times when we're late for dinner. We don't have time to be cutesy and turn left when we got to go right. There are times when you have to tighten the lug nuts on that car. But there are also, I think, the equal amount of times where, in the grand scheme of things, if you want to take this street and she wants to take this street, and it's really 6 one way, half dozen the other, just do it. Just do it their way.
Yep.
Who cares? Who cares? They do it for us. The 8 times out of 10 that you have to mansplain, that's what they're doing for us.
So maybe that's not a bad idea, because that's the other learning method. Rather than having to mansplain, letting that person decide, and then you turn that way and you end up wrong, and then they go, "Oh well, I was wrong." So if that happens multiple times, would there be a point where they go, "I'm not picking now"?
Right. Yes. Yes. And that's, what are we having for dinner tonight? What are we watching on TV tonight? These are all the things that I started off with.
So we have 2 methods of.
Yeah. So here's, you know what? Here's a whole other subject.
Sorry, we just gave a secret out. Sorry, boys.
Here's one for you. My wife loves when I order for her in a restaurant. She is very old school. There is nothing more romantic and masculine than me sitting down saying, "I'll have the burger," and she'll have the fish. I'll be having a whiskey
That's so
coke tonight, and
lovely.
she'll have and to her that's a very I guess Casablanca school, old school type of thing, which is great. And so that's where we're at. Here's the problem with that. I do that many, many, many times over. And then we get to a spot where we're at a work function for her team. And she's a very big business professional, and we're out, and I naturally order. But now it's demeaning because,
Oh yeah.
right? I'm just so used to taking that lead. Or in what we're referring to here, I'm so used to mansplaining, saying, we'll take this street instead of this street. I will make the decisions. I will pick what we're watching for TV till it backfires in my face. And then I will spend the next month saying, you pick dinner.
Yep.
You pick the
don't
show
wanna
we
pick
watch
dinner.
tonight. I'm not mansplaining shit anymore. I thought I had carte blanche because I was given that freedom. And so now I, much like we talked about in a previous episode, now what I do is I say, chicken or fish tonight. I'll make a decision. It's one of those two. Let's get through it together. You know what I mean? This is different than saying, do you want to tighten every other lug nut or all of them at the same time tonight? There's still times to be right and wrong. But I think pick your battles is what I'm going with here. Pick your battles.
And now I think there's multiple ways to do that. So that's pretty cool.
Walk me through that. Multiple ways to do that.
Mansplaining. So we either mansplain and try and get something done in the way we think it should be done, or allow that other person to make the decision. And then if it's wrong, and it happens to be wrong multiple times, they come to their own conclusion. But at what cost? Time, maybe money. Who knows? Is it worth either of it?
Okay.
Why do we do it? Why does it even matter? Aren't we here just to learn?
So I had a friend a few years ago. With what we're talking about, sometimes it matters. Sometimes it is impactful to future and finances and child raising and all these other things. This friend of mine, his wife wanted to change careers. We're going back 10 years ago now, but this was steady job, pension, 9 to 5. Everything about it was right, but his wife wasn't happy. And at the end of the day, it was, you know what? I think I'm going to take this other job, but it's a 1-hour commute. It's $4 more an hour, but it's every other weekend and stuff like this. Where I'm going with this is, in the long run, the husband looked and said, I'm going to mansplain why everything about this is wrong. You're 10 years from retirement. Stick it out. We're going to be fine. That $4 an hour extra you're going to spend in gas. I mean, on a 40-hour week, that's $160. That's your gas money back and forth.
Guaranteed.
But now you're away from the household 2 hours a week, and he's trying to mansplain this whole thing to a derogatory. Where at the end of the day, if your wife came to you and said, "Absolutely, you're not making that career choice. I don't support it. You're wrong. You're stupid for even thinking about it. Here's all the reasons you shouldn't do it," you'd probably be full of resentment. You might listen, but you'd be like, "Hold on a second." It's kind of like that "don't walk on the grass" sign. I'm doing cartwheels across that motherfucker. So in this case, inevitably,
Worth a conversation.
the wife said, "Well, decisions made that I'm changing jobs. You mansplaining bastard," and it happened to the tune of, you missed your kids' hockey games. Your husband's at home doing the extra 2 hours of work during your commute.
or whoever
did not think it through, right? Did not think it through. It was just,
Yeah.
it was more about, don't tell me what I can and can't do. Don't mansplain this to me. He was right. He was 100% right. And 10 years later, she was able to look at him and say, "Oh my God, you were right. Why didn't you stop me?" Well,
Okay.
I tried to stop you.
So now we're just labeled mansplainers for having a conversation.
For having a conversation. Yes. And to the detriment of, I can tell you,
Shame.
that couple is no longer together, and I don't know if they'll piece it together, if they'll even listen or not, but they aren't together anymore. And you know, that decision making process was him taking the kids to hockey and him doing the dishes and the nighttime routines, because there was a 2-hour commute on top of the 40-hour work week. There was another 16 hours of commute time.
Yeah.
That's a pretty monster deal, and it was all in his foresight to say, "Hey, this is the reason we can't do this."
And maybe it's not
There was no listening because he was mansplaining, because he was talking down, because he had to be the boss and he had to be right. It wasn't about being right. It was about being true to the situation.
Yeah. Hands down.
Yeah.
Damned if we do, damned if we don't.
Yes. We're trying to stick to 30 minutes an episode. We got 26, and I mean, we could probably talk all day about this, but
I think
exhausted.
I think we've realized where we're at.
We're damned if we do. We're damned if we don't. We can listen. We can
choose.
We can offer advice, but pick your battles. Pick your battles. And do your best. But there's sometimes, gentlemen, where it's okay to say, tighten those lug nuts in a certain fashion or we're all going to die.
Yeah.
And if they don't do it and they want to be right, just don't get in the car, fellas.
Simple as that.
All right, buddy.
Cheers.